The Amapola School was the most famous in the country. The children of the wealthiest businessmen, members of the nobility, and other personalities went there. All the upper-class students strove to get in, and if they did, it was a source of pride for their whole family. The truth is that the school had specialized classes in subjects that could only be studied there. The teachers spoke several languages, and the students came out with a promising working future. But that was not all that went on behind the walls of the Amapola, and very few people knew the whole truth. Giulio's father and grandfather had studied there, but for some reason they preferred that he did not. Of course, this was ultimately to no avail. Everyone in Giulio's class fought and studied hard to get in. This was so because from an early age, the teachers generated this need in them. But at home, Giulio had to listen to his father tell him that he shouldn't go. He didn't argue too much, or simply said that it was too demanding a place, where emotional intelligence was not taken into account. His father, who was a very famous banker, serious and not very talkative, at that time was concerned about emotional intelligence. This really surprised the young man and his mother, who didn't understand why he didn't want him to go there. The conversations at home regarding that topic were repeated night after night, and never got anywhere concrete. Giulio was tired of constantly hearing the same thing, so he ended up not having an opinion. He would just study hard and wait for the final exams to come. 5 students would be selected, and they would be chosen from among the best in the class. In addition to getting good grades, they had to have exemplary behaviors and be participative. Giulio had been doing that to the letter for years, so when they called his name among those selected, no one was surprised. Predictably, the only ones upset were his father and grandfather, who spent part of the summer telling him that he could still quit and go to another school. Of course, she didn't give up her place, and in September she grabbed her suitcase and set out to get into Poppy. It was a boarding school, so she would be able to go home once a month and during vacations. She would be in contact with her family through her cell phone, although since the rules were so strict, in there, she could only use it for an hour after dinner. But that was no obstacle for Giulio, who was thrilled with his new stage. He shared a room with Samuel, a shy but very polite boy. Normally, they never put people together who knew each other before. It was a way for everyone to learn how to relate to strangers. The girls were in the building across the street, sharing classes but separated for sleeping. The first day was one of the busiest. In the morning, they had a sort of introduction ceremony. The director said something to the effect that after their stay at Las Amapolas, they would never be the same. The truth is that he thought it was a bit excessive, but he just listened and nodded from time to time. At noon, they opened the large dining room. There was a single menu for everyone. At the center, they placed great importance on physical fitness, so they had a balanced diet and were well thought out so that everyone would be as healthy as possible. Giulio once again was delighted. He liked to eat everything, so it was not a problem for him. In the afternoon, they had an outing in the open air. They were shown the forests surrounding the center and did some sports. At 8 o'clock, they had dinner and went to their rooms. The next day, the classes started, and everything was going to be much harder, so they had to rest and prepare everything. And indeed, it was. Giulio, who was already self-demanding, was overwhelmed just hearing about everything they would have to do that semester. They even had specific athletic goals. It was a top school, so he would have to do his best. The first day, he also had time to notice his classmates, one girl in particular. Her name was Maria, and she had long blonde hair. She was sitting right in front of him, and he couldn't help but glance at her every few minutes. But although she liked it a lot, there was something else that caught her attention. Their teacher explained that every year at the end of the first semester, 5 people were chosen to be a part of a select group. Those selected, who had to meet a series of requirements, would have different and specialized classes. Although they would share a classroom for certain subjects, they would also have private classes. This impressed him because his father and grandfather had never told him about it. Neither had her teacher in elementary school. It was kind of a secret. They had no idea what the group was for. But it was a select group, so everyone wanted to be in it. The days went by, and Giulio got used to the routine inside the center. He also began to spend time with Maria, and he liked her more and more every day. Overall, he was happy in there. He felt that he was learning a lot, and that life was going in the right direction. On his first visit home, he asked his father about the select group. They were eating potatoes with meat, and his father, very serious, told him that he didn't know anything about it. But Giulio noticed how his face had changed. It was clear he did know something. But he preferred not to insist. He would investigate elsewhere. Back at the center, one day he asked his teacher if she had lists of the people who had previously been part of those groups. She told him yes, that every year they hung the photo of the people selected. It was in the hallway on the second floor. Giulio ran to see them. There were a lot of them, and some of them were very old. And to his surprise, both his father and grandfather were in them. Why had his father lied? What was he hiding? It was hard to know, especially since they were never going to talk about it. But he thought that if he could get inside, maybe he would have some more clue as to why his father was ashamed of it. From that moment on, he made an effort to know all the parameters they took into account, to know who to choose. And he was meeting them all one by one. And because he spent so much time with Maria, she did too. She wanted to be with him, so the two of them spent the semester training and studying. By the time it was almost over, they were in love and officially dating. Or, as official as something inside a boarding school can be anyway. And when in March, the list of those chosen to be part of the secret group was announced, they were both there. That made them very excited. They were going to share something unique, and they could spend more time together. Even so, Giulio was still a little nervous. He was eager but also very curious. In addition, he felt uncertain, because something told him that if his father was leaving the group, it was because of something more serious than he thought. In any case, there was no turning back. He was in, and he would soon find out what it was all about. But for the first few weeks, he only got more lost. The subjects they had added were more physical education, law, criminology, and psychology. It seemed that everything was geared towards hunting down murderers or evildoers. Maria was delighted with the classes. But he wanted them to tell them once and for all what they were being trained for. So one day, at the end of the class, she asked the director to talk to him. He said of course and invited him into his office. There, without beating around the bush, he asked him what the special group was for. The principal smiled and told him, "You're just like your father." And he was stunned by the mention, but did not stop trying to find out. "Why doesn't my father talk about that group?" he blurted out directly. The director told him that the members of the group were forbidden to talk about their performances to anyone who's not a fellow member. His father couldn't say anything about it to anyone in his family who wasn't in the same organization. He had the first answer, but he wanted the second. "And what are we going to have to do?" he asked again. And the director said, "You'll be the most trained killers in history." Everything around him began to spin, and he thought he would faint at any moment. "What do you mean by kill?" he managed to say when he regained his composure. "I don't want to kill anyone." The director looked at him laughing, and he felt very helpless. "Is this a joke? Because if it's not, I don't want to be part of your group. I'm not going to do any of that stuff you say," Giulio continued. His legs were shaking like flans. He still couldn't believe what he had heard. Then the director became very serious and said to him, "I'm sorry, but you can't get out. Once you enter, there's no escape. If not, ask your father. He knows a lot about trying to escape." After that, he invited him to leave the office and forbade him to say anything to his colleagues. They would know in due time. The following days were strange. Maria kept asking him what had happened, but he couldn't say anything. He just wanted to go home so that his father could explain everything. Maybe since he was now a part of it too, they could talk. And so it was, as soon as he got home, very serious and with dark circles under his eyes, he told his father that he wanted to talk to him alone. His mother looked at them very worried, but did not intervene. In the room, Giulio told him that he had been selected for the secret group, and he already knew what they were doing. His father, covering his face with his hands, began to cry inconsolably. Giulio did not know what to do, but he remembered what he had talked about with the director and imagined his father in the same situation. He ran to hug him and understood the gravity of the situation. So she told him that they had something to do. She could not allow her son to have the same life as him. Together they came up with a plan to try to destroy that evil organization that was forcing young people to become killers. The young man went back to his classes and tried to concentrate, but nothing he did would help him to not think about what they were going to do. He tried to warn Maria without telling her the truth, but she was so excited about the group and everything they were learning that she didn't pay any attention to him. And it all blew up when, in a meeting, they were told what their purpose was going to be. They were going to be luxury assassins. Most were dumbfounded, and even more so when they were told they couldn't refuse. Otherwise, with all the stockholders they had, they would destroy their careers and never be anything in life again. Giulio looked at Maria to see her reaction and was surprised to see that she was the calmest of them all. She looked straight ahead and said absolutely nothing. A couple of his companions wanted to leave, as he had done days before, but she accepted it, and that made him deeply sad. With the news already known, they could now attend the meeting with the other senior members of the organization. There would be the director, who was the recruiter, and also the most powerful people, the ones who put up the money and managed the whole situation. That was the place where Giulio and his father were going to perform. By the time the day came, he and Maria were already totally separated. He had explained to her that he didn't like her reaction, and she reaffirmed her position that the idea of killing people didn't seem so bad to her. So although he loved her very much, he told her he didn't want to continue with that story. At that party, everyone was dressed very elegantly, and the place was an old palace on the outskirts of the city. Giulio knew that father had selected some of his classmates who were like him, but even so, in numbers they were clearly losing out. Anyway, the plan was clear. Go for the dome, and then try to talk some sense into the rest. Giulio's father had bribed 2 waiters who to exchange the boss's food for the one he had prepared. In it, he had deposited a fair amount of poison that would go unnoticed by everyone. That first step went well. When they were all sitting in their seats finishing the first course, the boss collapsed. Everyone around him panicked, and that was the moment when they went into action. The group they had formed drew their guns and shot the other board members. They were all killers, so the situation immediately turned into a complicated combat in which everyone attacked with whatever they had at hand. Giulio, who had never killed anyone in his life, watched everything blow up. And in the middle, he saw Maria, who wielded a knife that ended up directly in her father's back. As soon as he saw her, he ran in the same direction, but she was still teaching herself. She grabbed a vase on the way and smashed it over his head as soon as she got there. Then she looked at her father, who'd already lost a lot of blood but was still breathing. She wanted to get him out of there, but no one could get out of that war. His father and Maria died within seconds. And of course, the organization continued to work, and Giulio had to follow orders.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you on the next episode.